Welcome to Fit Chat, Chit Chat. I'm your hostess, Devondria Sanchez, also known as the Fit Therapist, founder, owner, and client of Finding Inner Transformation, where we believe a fit mindset is more than the physical. It is mental, emotional, and spiritual. So I wish I was on here speaking about something a little less intense, but I think this is a great opportunity to discuss the recent mass shooting in Tulsa, and particularly, from my understanding, it is the 233rd mass shooting in the United States in 2022. Let that sink in for a minute. 233. I want to first say, please put your comments, your feedback, and your questions in the chat if you have something to say. I'd love to speak to it. But first, I want to send my condolences, my prayers to all the families impacted. I know oftentimes, and I've been recently hearing, prayers are not enough. We want change and all these other things. Prayer is my first step. So I cannot not say that and extend that to the families or all those who impacted, including us who are watching. If we had to endure the news for 233 times, that's just the times that it's happened. That's not the times that the news or the media or social media has ran countless times over and over again. And hopefully we're protecting our own mental health as we watch these things on the news. And so I want to first say that. Secondly, I want to say I do not want to get into a political stance or pretend I am an expert in mass shootings, because I am not. And actually, I have my own thoughts around school shootings, because I have done a little bit of work around it, but that's not today's format. Today is allowing this platform to talk about pain and mental health. Again, I do not proclaim to be an expert in this recent Tulsa shooting, but I can say that I could speak to, they said he was in a massive amount of pain, premeditated a letter blaming the surgeon who performed it. And let's just get the elephant in the room and say this was an African-American male. And from my understanding, it was an African-American doctor. So with that being said, there is not a racial divide here, but we are going to talk about what was said. And what was said was he complained about excruciating back pain after having a surgery. Well, there's some things that we know for sure. If someone has went to the great lengths of back surgery, we can probably, definitely, almost, I think we will all agree that there was probably excruciating pain up until this point. Now, me highlighting that is not an excuse for what happened. What happened was senseless, in my opinion. And I have some other thoughts around that. But for this particular situation, let's just talk about pain and mental health. One of the things that I was reading about in general about the connection and fit, finding inner transformation, is all about the mind, body, and the spirit. So what we're really saying is the soul, the body, and the spirit. But I want to talk about this thing that I read. It says, sometimes when we think about pain, we have to think about it in context of our mental state. I'm going to talk about my own personal experience, and then we'll talk about more specifically what could have potentially been an issue here, and not taking mental health off, not taking pure evil, because I have one group of folks who talk about, this in a spiritual situation, this is pure evil, right? To take someone's life. I'm not saying I disagree. And then we have another group of folks who say this is mental illness. And I'm not going to say I disagree with that. But I want to talk about it very practically, about pain, how it influences someone. So there's a pediatrician who talked about pain as a disease. They expressed that most of the time pain is actually confronted as a symptom of whether it's the surgery or whether it's, problems in the body, that this is a symptom of something going on, which could be true, but they want to say that about 10% of the time when you're recovering from a painful event, such as a surgery or anything like that, that it can create its own disease. I found that very fascinating, especially when people live with chronic disease. And I don't think this individual that we're talking about woke up, right, in this particular day with pain, because this obviously led to the surgery. Now, this is not to dismiss his actions, but I would tell you, and most of you know, if you've ever been in pain, you don't feel good mentally. One thing I know for sure, being a clinician for several years now, licensed for the last 8 and been in the mental health field for 21 years, nobody wakes up and feels good in their mindset when they have pain in their body. They are interconnected. So with that being said, if I have chronic pain, more than likely, I'm probably dealing with significant depression, probably clinical depression. Most people with chronic pain oftentimes suffer from clinical depression, major depression, to the point where they can even get hopeless. Put a pin in that. I had to have sinusplasty, turbinate reduction, and deviated septum get fixed. And I was in such excruciating pain after the surgery. I'm speaking for myself. I can remember thinking it would be easier for my husband to ram this car off a bridge. I'm just being very, very honest. That's how much pain I was. Like, I was getting to the point where most people in chronic pain or excruciating pain get to. That means you get hopeless. Once people get hopeless, there's nothing else to live for. So I am not surprised that this individual that shot several folks, I think it was 4, in this Tulsa hospital shooting, that he took his own life. Suicide is a high priority for people with chronic pain, especially if they've been enduring it for months and years, because they don't see a way out. I'm not really here to talk about the aspects of the mass shootings. And again, if you're just joining, 233. And we are only halfway through the year since 2022 has begun. I'm not here to dismiss that, but I'm here as an opportunity to talk about pain and mental health. Pain and mental health. Because there's a lot of people. So some would probably argue, well, what about women? They go through labor. There's many people who have suffered and talked about pain, but they didn't go and kill anyone. I agree. Again, this is not a platform or a topic to talk about in this particular time, to go on more about what is the fine line for someone to go over the edge. I don't have the answer to that. I won't pretend to have the answer. Some people take physical pain and they use it as, okay, I'm going to use this as mental fortitude to dig deeper. Everybody cannot do that. I have literally worked with clients who have contemplated suicide and actually have attempted because of excruciating pain, because it seemed hopeless. Some people try to partner with it and make pain their friend, because you don't know when it's going to hit you. For some people, they never get relief. And let's not talk about addiction that comes along with pain. Let's not talk about drug use or pain pill addiction, to be quite honest. That if just for a moment, I cannot feel this pain and have a regular life. This individual who made the decision to take the life of doctors and receptionists and staff was at the point, he went in with the notion that he wasn't going to make it out. I didn't need to talk to the man to know that. There's no way he thought that he could go into a hospital where security is there. There's a reason the security is there, right? And believe that he was going to come out alive. He was prepared to take his own life, which is not uncommon with people with chronic pain. Anxiety is also a very common friend to people who exhibit chronic pain or excruciating pain. Worrying about when will it flare up. So like let's take that for instance, if we just focused on the mental health aspect of anxiety and depression as it relates to pain, because that's something you can't control. And remember, what's being released is our stress hormone. And then we're not producing our feel good hormones because that is being overridden by the stress hormone. Remember that the brain doesn't know the difference between a broken leg and a broken heart. It just knows something is wrong. And it will flare up different areas. So it's going to impact your sleep. So if I'm in chronic pain, I'm probably not sleeping well. And if I'm not sleeping well, I'm much more fragile to doing things very impulsively. I'm much more susceptible to anger and frustration. And I'm definitely at a high consideration of hopelessness. And now we can talk about suicidality. And if I'm not feeling good in my body and my mind, how well am I eating and hydrating? Probably not well. And if I'm not eating well and I'm not hydrating, then I'm not thinking very clear. And the rational part of my brain, the mind, is not online. What is online? Well, survival. If I'm in constant pain, then I'm in survival mode. Probably, let's safely say 90% of the time. Let's give 10%. So now if I'm not sleeping well, I'm not eating well, I'm not drinking enough, I'm probably not engaging with people. So I don't have a support system to talk me out of irrationality. So let me say that, we can be very judgmental about all these things. We can all believe we have the answer. Gun control, politicians do the right thing, lock everybody up who, I don't know, looks like it. I think, in the last 15 to 20 days, we've had 3 mass shootings. And let's just put the elephant out in the room. One was white, one was Hispanic, and one was African American. So we also know that we can't put mass shooters in a box. One thing we can say for sure is that they were male. Some people can do some research about that. Is it testosterone, right? Because women go through a lot of pain, and I'm not judging. I'm just saying what is evident of labor, and they don't consider taking out the whole staff, although they've thought about it. Hello, let me just be very honest. But what happened here? We know how sensitive the mind is. How do we know that? Because studies have shown countless times that people who have been in pain or suffer from mental illness have been given a placebo and instantly thought they were better. That's how fragile the mind is if we consider it that way. Just even thinking that they could be better impacts the mind. So if I'm sitting, and let's just go on the polar opposite, if I'm thinking I'll never get better, the pills are not working, the surgery is gone away, then it might be easier to place blame somewhere as well. Let's not forget about being in pain and also dealing with extras of being dismissed by providers or being over medicated or simply being tired of meds, testing, etc. Beautiful. Thank you, Shonda. That is definitely something to consider about all the things that happen. There is medical trauma. Some people have endured that. There is such a thing. So to Shonda's point, dealing with being dismissed by providers. We're not saying that that was the case in this particular situation, nor am I saying that that condones the right to come back and take someone's life. And we must consider that everybody is not having the same experience when they go to medical providers, to include different populations, to include access to care, to include being dismissed, to include being over or under medicated. There was a recent fit chat we did with a doula, Ms. Shonda, and her client at the time. right? And we talked about, especially not to go off on a tangent, but how African American women have been long over dismissed and under medicated or non-listened to, not listened to because of pain thresholds that people perceive are higher than other folks. Yeah, tired of meds and tests. Chronic pain wears on people. Again, my own experience with the whole nose sinus surgery, I literally thought for a brief moment that I could just ram this thing off the road. That's how much pain, because it felt like it was going to never end. Now, mind you, wasn't even at a surgery a good hour to 2 hours. And the doctor said, I told my husband, I cannot give her any more medication. Oh my goodness. What was next? It feels like a sense of helplessness. So if I'm experiencing clinical depression, chronic pain, and I need somebody to blame, I don't know what else he believed in this particular mass shooting, what he believed that would be available to him that this doctor could do, but he wrote a letter, from my understanding, this gentleman, and he was out to target the doctor. Again, him not being here, he can't speak for himself, and definitely there is absolutely no reason that we should take someone's life. But let's just, again, think for a moment about if I'm in chronic pain and have been, and I don't know how long, but again, most people don't jump into surgery right away. So that tells me he's probably had several tests, meds, maybe physical therapy. He's tried all the alternatives up into this point. I also want to take the time to say this is not an opportunity to still stigmatize mental health, because things like this, things like mass shootings or people going in disarray and taking the law in their own hands, or justices that they believe are true into their own hands, then tells people, well, I'm not crazy, or I don't want to be in the same category as the person who has taken a life. Let me just tell you, let's get a fact out there. You can Google it. People with mental dis-ease are more likely to be targeted than to be the perpetrator. So I'm not saying these folks didn't have a mental illness or dis-ease. What I am saying is, let's not clump everybody in the same category. So I wanted to come on here, but and just speak to chronic pain can lead to depression, anxiety, suicidality. And so if you are someone who lives with chronic pain, please, please, please also seek therapy. I have seen clients before just because of chronic pain. And then, of course, we know that they are not operating in silos. So chronic pain and mental health and mental state can be altered because of pain. People finding out that they've had cancer or even diabetes or some kind of lifelong illness have come to mental health for the first time after getting diagnosed, to include HIV or AIDS or any other thing. So I just wanted to come on here. This wasn't going to be a long one. Again, I do not want to entangle this with politics, gun control, or any other kind of injustices that are out there or people believe to be so. But I want to say that there is a link, and I just wanted to use this as an opportunity, that this is a link. When people say that they're in pain, let's hear them. Let's not decide for them as providers. I'm a mental health provider. It is not my job to say how depressed someone is. Yes, we want to find out a severity and intensity to make sure that it doesn't eventually lead to suicide. But it's not here to say that you're not as depressed as you present, or because I see someone show up, right? Because someone could easily say that this gunman wrote a letter. He ain't that crazy. Could easily say that. I can tell you that physical pain And mental pain, emotional pain, losing someone can bring people to considering whether they should be on this earth or not. And because the brain is so sophisticated and sometimes very complex, it doesn't take the time to weed out um, what is the physical pain, what's the emotional pain. It's just going to show up in your body, and it's going to then show up in your behaviors. If I think I'll never get better, or I think the doctor is responsible for my pain, then of course my thoughts maybe even if they're a little bit irrational, my thoughts are still my thoughts that will create these feelings and emotions. And then those emotions and feelings will create a behavior. Not everybody's behavior is not to go get a gun and then go back, write a letter, and shoot someone or many people. So I think this is a great opportunity just to talk about if you are feeling physical pain in your body, more than likely you're not feeling well. And if you're not feeling well, you may not be taking care of yourself well. And I just highlighted some things that chronic pain influences our ability to take care of ourselves, to eat, to sleep well. If you got back pain, and we'll just use that, and I've had a couple tweaks here and there, nowhere along the lines of needing back pain, surgery. I don't sleep well. If I don't sleep well, I'm not rational. There's no way I can be. I'm more likely to be irritated and frustrated. So when we think about even what I said at the top of the session today, is that physical pain can create its own disease, not just being a symptom of back issues, but pain can actually create its own world for people. Some people have learned to partner with it. Some people have learned to do their best to escape or avoid it through drugs and alcohol, or pain meds, or medication. And some people have just learned that this may be a hopeless or helpless situation. And those folks are more risk for suicide. And so we should take this as an opportunity to take care of ourselves and recognize the importance of physical pain and mental wellness, and that they are interconnected. With that being said, thank you, Shonda, for your comment. Let's not forget to lift up the people who are no longer here and their families. Do what you can do. Be a supportive space for people. If they say they're in pain, check in with them. Because if they are in physical pain and they could tell you about that, tells me that you might want to follow up with a check-in. How are you feeling? Do you need more support? You don't know whose life you can save by just following up with that. I don't know what the rest of this year will look like, but with 233 mass shootings already, and we're only halfway in this year, I'm no predictor of anything, nor will I act that way. But I do want to encourage us to do what is helpful for you and your family. If you guys pray together, pray together. Talk about mental health, like we would talk about where we're going to eat on Friday night. I just made that post recently because that was really important. We talk often. We will go into great lengths about where we're going to eat, what we're going to cook, what we're going to do. Talk about mental health with your children. It's never too early. Talk about it in age appropriate language, what it means, what could happen, how to prepare themselves as much as possible. Since these mass shootings are happening in unconventional places, it's not happening at the gun range where you expect guns to be. It's happening in our local everyday walks of life. So how do you prepare? Well, I don't know. Yes, that's for you and your family to distinguish. But I will say mental health is real. Mental wellness, activity, and practices are something we need to practice every single day. So if you don't get to care for yourself until the weekend happens, you are doing yourself and your family a disservice. What can you practice 5 minutes every day? What can you encourage your kids to practice something every day? How can you talk to your children about life and mental wellness? How can you reduce the stigma in your house, in the areas that you're connected to, such as your work or your churches? This is the time to be proactive, not to be reactive. So it's one thing to post things on your social media page. Then my next question was, how will you follow up and provide life, wellness? How will you talk about it in a way that reduces the stigma of how much we need to take care of our mental health just as much as our physical health? They are interconnected. But just like I put in the subject is our behaviors will vary. Not everybody deals with physical pain the same way. With that being said, my heart, my condolences, my prayers go out to Texas, to New York, to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and all the other 230 that I did not describe here today. That being said, God bless you. If you want to be on Fit Chat, Chit Chat, you have a story that you would like to be told, email me, fitchatchitchat@gmail.com. If you are not subscribed to my YouTube page, please do so at the Fit Therapist. And if you're not on any of my social media platforms, look for Fit Therapist. Next, Fit Chat Chit Chat will be on why you can't lose weight. Listen, that's a whole conversation. And actually, I'm looking at making that a series as we prepare, hopefully, for a next group of Thrive, where me and another beauty get on there and discuss and take a group of folks through not only the psychology of eating, but of our mind and how to change mindsets, but also talk about nutrition and fitness. So stay tuned for that. That will be airing next week, Tuesday at 6 p.m. So stay tuned. There's no more questions, comments, or feedback. If you're watching this in a recording, please leave any comments or feedback. What's your experience with pain and how it played on your mental wellness? Let us know. I don't think we're out of sorts in saying that we know that one impacts the other and that they are interconnected. With that being said, I thank you for joining me. I thank you for your life. I thank you for your heart. I thank you for your time. God bless you, and may He continue to keep you. Take care.